killed Elma Sands? That's the question, isn't it?
It really is. The one that just hangs over this whole story.
Welcome, everyone. We're about to really dig into something deeply unsettling today.
The Manhattan Well tragedy
Mm.
from 1799.
Yeah, it's a plunge right into the heart of this really cold, unsolved mystery.
And it's fascinating because this isn't just some dusty old case file.
Yeah.
It tells us so much about early America. The justice system back then was, well, fragile is a good word.
Right, fragile. Think about it. December 1799, Manhattan. The country's brand new, still figuring things out.
Washington had just died.
Exactly. The city itself, maybe 60,000 people. Not the metropolis we know. Dim oil lamps at night.
And a justice system, like you said, just sort of getting started.
And into this world, on December 22nd, this young woman, Elma Sands, she just vanishes.
And her disappearance wasn't just a local thing for long.
Yeah.
When they found her body later in a well that just lit a fire, it became this national obsession almost.
It really did. It shows how early on America was hooked on these kinds of dark, mysterious stories.
And the historical significance is huge, too. It's not just the crime itself.
No, you've got these massive figures pulled in. Alexander Hamilton.
And Aaron Burr, political enemies.
Working together on the defense team. Imagine that courtroom.
Yeah, that alone tells you something, doesn't it? The kind of power and influence already at play, even back then.
It really does. People say this case, it's basically the birth of America's obsession with true crime.
Many considered exactly that. The template was set.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to figure out as much as we can who Elma Sands actually was.
What happened leading up to her disappearance?
Right, and why, after more than 225 years, we still don't know who killed her.
It's a huge challenge, obviously. The time gap is immense.
Of course. But we want you, listening right now, to join us. Let's piece together what we do know about this early American enigma.
Sifting through the records, the accounts, trying to make sense of it. Which brings us back to that core question, the one that won't go away. Who killed Elma Sands?
So over this next hour or so, we're going to explore Elma's world, try to reconstruct that night, December 22nd.
Then the grim discovery, the investigation, such as it was.
The trial, which was just sensational, and then all the theories that have swirled around ever since.
We'll look at the facts, the context, try to understand it all.
So let's start there. What actually happened that night?
Well, to get a handle on that night, you need to picture Manhattan back then, 1799.
Yeah, forget Times Square and skyscrapers.
Totally different world. Like you said, maybe 60,000 people. Mostly wooden buildings, dirt roads.
The city basically stretched from, what, the Battery up to maybe Houston Street?
Roughly, yeah. Broadway was there, the main drag, sure. Taverns, shops.
But just off the main streets.
You had areas like Lisbonard's Meadow, near modern Soho, swampy, undeveloped. Kind of wild, really. That's the backdrop.
Okay. And Elma Sands lived in this city. She was young, just 22.
A Quaker. And she lived in a boarding house on Greenwich Street.
Right, and this wasn't just a random boarding house. There was a family tie.
Exactly. It was run by her cousin, Catherine Ring, and Catherine's husband, Elias.
So she's living with relatives, but also other boarders.
Right. The usual dynamics of communal living, added complexities.
In being a Quaker, then, that meant something specific, right? A whole community structure.
Oh, absolutely. Simplicity, a really strict moral code, prayer meetings, plain dress.
A lot of community oversight, people watching.
Definitely. Which, was meant to keep everyone on the straight and narrow, but
if you had feelings or desires that didn't quite fit,
you had to keep them hidden, deeply hidden, which could lead to, well, complications.
Yeah.
Tensions.
And one of those complications, it seems, involved a man named Levi Weeks.
Levi Weeks, he was 23, a carpenter, seemed to have decent prospects.
Because of his brother.
Yeah, his older brother, Ezra Weeks, was a successful builder, wealthy, connected. That gave Levi a certain standing.
So, Elma and Levi, what was the nature of their relationship? It wasn't public knowledge, was it?
No, definitely not. Their romance, whatever its exact nature, was secret, forbidden, or at least heavily frowned upon by Quaker standards.
So they're meeting in secret, always looking over their shoulders, worried about scandal.
Precisely. That secrecy is crucial to understanding everything that happened next.
Okay, let's focus on the day she disappeared. December 22nd, 1799. What do we know?
Well, it was getting seriously cold. A real winter blast hitting the city.
Right.
And Elma, she put on a heavy shawl, getting ready to go out. She told her cousin Catherine she was meeting someone.
Just someone, or did she say who?
The account suggests she might not have explicitly said Levi, given the secrecy. Maybe just implied it, or maybe Catherine suspected.
And Catherine let her go. That was the last time she saw her cousin alive.
That was it. The hours ticked by. Evening turned into night, and Elma didn't come back.
The atmosphere in that boarding house must have changed. Unease growing.
You can only imagine.
What do you think pushed Elma out into the cold and snow that night? Was it really just a casual meeting? Or something bigger?
It had to be something compelling. Around 8 p.m., she leaves. Was it to elope? That's one theory. To run away with Levi, escape the rules.
Or maybe a confrontation? A serious talk?
Could be. Maybe about the relationship's future. Maybe something urgent had come up. We just don't know the specifics of that planned meeting.
The streets would have been snowy, quiet, muffled sound.
Maybe some excitement for Elma, maybe fear. Hard to say.
And Catherine Ring just watches her go. No idea it's the final time.
No idea at all.
Then the days pass, Christmas comes and goes. Still no Elma.
The worry must have turned into real fear. Panic, even.
Neighbors get involved, searching. The community starts looking.
Right. That small community pulling together.
And then the discovery. January 2nd, 1800. More than a week later.
Yeah. Some boys just playing near Lispenard's Meadow, that undeveloped area.
What did they find?
They saw something in the Manhattan well. A muff. You know, one of those fur hand warmers.
Floating in the well. Oh, God.
Yeah, and this wasn't drinking well, really. More of a cistern, about 12 feet deep, collecting spring water. Pretty isolated spot back then.
So they alert the authorities.
And they retrieve Elma's body and the condition. It was grim.
Horrific, based on the accounts.
Waterlogged, of course. But her neck was breaking, twisted at a completely unnatural angle.
Broken neck. Not just drowning then.
No. And bruises on her arms. Her clothes were in disarray. It pointed clearly to a violent struggle.
So the coroner.
The verdict was swift. Murder. No question in his mind.
And that well.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's not just a well anymore.
No. It becomes this symbol of horror. It's on Spring Street now, or where Spring Street is. People started whispering immediately, there's a killer right there.
In their small city. Predator.
Yeah. And suspicion, naturally, fell straight onto Levi Weeks.
The last person known to have seen her. Makes sense.
But still, so many questions. Like, who else knew about that well? It wasn't exactly on Broadway.
Right. Was it planned? A crime of passion that went too far? Or something colder, calculated?
Those questions started circulating almost immediately. The discovery just set the city ablaze.
A public firestorm, you called it. This wasn't fading away.
Not a chance. It became the talk of the town and beyond. And remember, the police force back then.
Rudimentaries, putting it mildly. The watch system.
Exactly. Night watchmen. Their job was more about keeping order, preventing fires, not complex homicide investigations.
So evidence collection, forensics, basically non-existent by our standard.
Pretty much. They relied on eyewitnesses, which can be iffy, and whatever circumstantial clues they stumbled upon.
But they did make an arrest fairly quickly.
Yeah, Levi Weeks was arrested on January 3rd, just one day after they found Elma's body.
And his story for that night, December 22nd, his alibi.
He was shaky, really shaky. He claimed he was home all evening.
But
Witnesses came forward. People who said they saw him near the Manhattan. Well, around the time Elma likely died.
That doesn't look good.
Not at all. Those contradictions really put him under immediate suspicion.
And this is where it gets even more dramatic, with his brother stepping in.
Ezra Weeks, the wealthy builder. He didn't just get a lawyer.
No, he got the lawyers. The dream team.
That's still kind of stunning. He somehow convinced Alexander Hamilton.
Founding father, legal giant.
And Aaron Burr.
His fiercest political rival.
To join the same defense team for his brother.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it? The money, the influence Ezra must have had.
Absolutely. And the stakes. Everyone knew this was huge.
So these two political enemies, Hamilton and Burr, they put aside their differences for this case.
Incredible image. It really highlighted the power dynamics at play.
So the trial starts March 31st, 1800. And it's not just a local affair.
No, this was America's first real media frenzy trial. The first high-profile murder case that gripped the nation.
People flocking to the courtroom.
Huge crowds. Apparently, they had to use a makeshift space. Everyone wanted to see Hamilton and Burr, wanted to hear the details. It was a massive public event.
Okay, let's break down the trial itself. The prosecution, led by Cadwallader Colden, what was their angle?
Their case was built around motive and opportunity. They painted Levi as this jealous lover. Maybe Elma rejected him, maybe she was pregnant, and he panicked. Something along those lines leading to violence.
What evidence did they actually present?
It was mostly circumstantial. They had witnesses who claimed they heard a sleigh on the night of the 22nd near the well and heard screams.
Suggesting she was taken there against her will.
That was the implication. They also pointed to muddy footprints found near the well.
And claimed they matched Levi's boots.
They argued they did.
Yeah.
But again, think about the conditions. Snowy, muddy.
Could have been anyone's footprints.
Exactly. And the screams, hard to verify who or what people heard in the dark.
So, pretty thin evidence, really. No weapon.
No weapon ever found. No one saw him actually commit the crime. It all rested on putting these circumstantial pieces together.
And then you have Hamilton and Burr on the defense, two of the sharpest legal minds around.
And they just dismantled the prosecution's case, piece by piece.
How so?
They hammered on the weaknesses. Those footprints could be anyone's, they argued.
Yeah.
Impossible to say definitively they were Levi's.
Right.
The screams, unreliable. Could have been anything. Late-night revelers, who knows? They created doubt about every single point.
Did they offer an alternative, like accident or suicide?
They did float those possibilities,
Yeah.
which seems odd given the broken neck and bruises.
Very odd. But legally?
Legally, all they needed was reasonable doubt. If they could suggest any other possibility, it weakened the murder charge. It was a strategic move.
And clearly effective. The trial lasted 2 days.
2 intense days. Then the jury went out to deliberate.
And how long did they take?
Get this, 5 minutes.
5 minutes after a 2-day murder trial with Hamilton and Burr.
5 minutes. Astonishing, isn't it?
What was the verdict?
Not guilty. Levi Weeks was acquitted.
Wow. And the reaction?
Mixed, as you'd expect. Relief from his supporters, outrage from those convinced he did it.
It just leaves that massive question hanging, doesn't it? Was that justice? Or did money, connections, and brilliant lawyers just win the day?
That's the question people started asking immediately, and haven't stopped asking since.
Because the acquittal didn't solve anything, did it? It just made the mystery deeper.
If anything, yeah. If Levi didn't do it, who did? The question just echoed louder.
So let's talk theories. Because plenty have sprung up over the, 226 years?
Oh, yeah. Theories abound.
Right.
Let's start with the most obvious one, the one that never really went away. Levi Weeks did do it.
Despite the acquittal.
Despite the acquittal.
Yeah.
Many people just never bought his innocence. The motive is usually seen as, like we said, potential pregnancy, or maybe the elopement plan went sour, something provoked him.
And his behavior afterward, didn't he leave town?
He did. He left New York pretty quickly after the trial, which, to many people, looked like someone running away. Guilty conscience, perhaps.
Okay, so that's the Levi theory. What about Richard Croucher?
Ah, Croucher. He was another boarder in the same house, the Rings place on Greenwich Street.
Right.
And he had a reputation, apparently known for being a bit lecherous, unsavory.
And was he connected to the crime scene?
There were reports, sightings, placing him near the Manhattan Run, well around the time Elma disappeared.
So the theory is maybe Croucher acted alone, or maybe...
Or maybe he was involved with Levi somehow, an accomplice. He's this kind of shadowy figure lurking on the edges of the story.
Then there's the idea it was just random, a stranger.
The third-party theory. Yeah, maybe someone tried to rob Elma. Maybe she had some other enemy no one knew about.
In a city even one that size, random violence happens.
It's certainly possible. Less connection to the known players, but you can't rule it out entirely.
And we touched on accident or suicide, but the injuries.
The broken neck, the bruises.
Yeah.
They make accident or suicide seem really, really unlikely. The evidence just points strongly towards violence, foul play.
There have also been whispers over the years, haven't there? Hints in old pamphlets, records.
Yeah.
About a possible cover-up.
Yes, that narrative exists too, often pointing back to Ezra Weeks, Levi's wealthy brother.
Suggesting he used his influence.
That maybe he paid people off, suppressed evidence, intimidated witnesses, used his power to ensure Levi walked free. It adds another layer of intrigue, that possibility of manipulation from behind the scenes.
So here we are, 2025, still asking, was it passion, greed, some random dark encounter? We just don't have that definitive answer.
And that lack of an answer is precisely why we're still talking about it, why it haunts us. That deep human need for closure, especially when life is cut short so brutally.
This case, it really shook the young country, didn't it? Left a mark.
A huge mark. It was, as we said, a media sensation. Pamphlets were everywhere, detailing the crime, the trial. People took sides fiercely.
Debating Levi's guilt or innocence.
Exactly. It showed how invested the public could become in these stories, even then.
And it really did shine a light on the justice system. Maybe not a flattering light.
No, it exposed cracks. Showed how money and connections maybe could influence the outcome. Raised uncomfortable questions about fairness and equality under the law.
Having Hamilton and Burr involved just amplified that, I imagine.
For sure. It made the whole thing even more visible, more debated.
And that, well, now buried under a building in Soho. A hidden marker.
A silent monument, yeah. Kind of creepy when you think about it. Underneath the modern city, this site of historic tragedy.
And you really can trace the lineage of modern true crime back to this, can't you? The public fascination, the sensational trial, the enduring mystery.
Absolutely. It set the stage. The public obsession, the media coverage, the unresolved questions, it influenced how later cases, like Lizzie Borden's maybe, were perceived and consumed. The DNA is there.
And it's wild that now, 226 years later, interest seems to be picking up again.
It ebbs and flows, but it never truly goes away. The lack of closure keeps pulling people back in. There's always that hope, maybe this time.
Which leads us to now, April 2025. Is anything actually happening with the case? Any new leads?
There is some movement, yeah. A renewed buzz, you could say. Historians, even amateur investigators, are trying again.
Oh, so?
Well, with modern science, especially DNA tech, there's a push to find Elma's grave.
To analyze remains?
Potentially, yes.
Right.
If they could locate her remains, maybe DNA could finally point towards a family line, perhaps even identify the killer or rule out suspects definitively. Right.
Finding the grave after all this time.
Huge challenge. Records are lost, incomplete. It's a long shot, but people are looking.
I heard about a documentary last year, 2024. Supposedly found some letters.
That's right. The documentary presented these letters that they argued suggested Levi Weeks was guilty. But, big but, the authenticity and interpretation of those letters are still heavily debated among historians. They haven't been widely accepted as conclusive proof. Generated talk, yes. Solved the case, no.
And wasn't there a podcast looking into Croucher, the other border?
Yes. They tracked down a descendant of Richard Croucher.
Really? Did they find anything?
They reported uncovering family rumors, stories passed down, hinting that maybe Croucher was involved.
Wow, but again,
It's anecdotal. Fascinating, suggestive, perhaps, but not hard evidence. Nothing verifiable that solves it yet.
so no smoking gun has emerged recently.
Not yet. But there's still hope, especially with things like genetic genealogy. It's cracked other really old cases.
Right, so it's not impossible.
Not impossible. The odds are long after 226 years. But technology keeps advancing. So, who knows? What do you think 2025 might hold for this case? Could this be the year something finally breaks?
It's hard to say. Reflecting on this whole deep dive, the Manhattan Well mystery, it really does feel like this ghost in America's attic, still rattling around. And Elma Sands, her story, it's just heartbreaking. A young life ended, and this cry for justice that's just never been fully answered.
Never answered.
Yeah.
And her killer, just a shadow, a name lost to history, maybe forever.
Maybe. But look, if anyone listening, if you have anything, maybe an old family story passed down, an old letter tucked away, something you think might be related, however small.
You never know what might be the key.
Exactly. Consider reaching out to the New York Historical Society. They handle inquiries about things like this.
Every little bit could potentially help fill in a piece of the puzzle.
It could. Well, thank you all for joining us on this really unsettling exploration, diving into these old mysteries. It's compelling, isn't it?
It really is. Keeps history alive.
It does. We appreciate you coming along with us. Until our next deep dive.
Stay curious.
Shock awaits next.